You're listening to Technomics, connecting you to insights on digital transformation and the marketplace, with your hosts Robin Ituli and Jeremy Nelson. The hosts' opinions are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Technomics. I'm Curt Cornum and I will be your new guest host. Robin and Jeremy are still around, but as Insight's resident chief geek, I have some expertise and a true passion around infrastructure, so they've asked me to help out with the conversations. Some of you may know, if you've followed me on LinkedIn, that my headline is, I am on a mission to help people put technology to work. And what I mean by that is I can geek out with the best of them on a personal level, but really from a business perspective, I really feel if you can't connect the technology from great ideas to meaningful results, that it really doesn't matter. And so that's why it's a passion of mine to help people understand infrastructure and how they can use it to drive their business forward. So a few weeks ago, we held our Intelligent Technology Forum, which is a live stream event. And as the name implies, these events are streamed live over the internet. And what we like to do with these is to bring together experts around a topic to help people understand what the future holds. At our most recent live stream, we talked about real-time business and the Internet of Things. You know, there's a lot of hype around Internet of Things today, but I think the panelists did a great job of demystifying the Internet of Things and making it real for people in terms of how they can use that technology to make a difference in their business. We had some great discussions around real-time business in the Internet of Things, and I thought there were some interesting and different perspectives that came up. A couple of our guests you may be familiar with. They've been on podcasts before that we've had. Bob Familiar's our Director of National Practice at Blue Metal. And then we also had Dan Gutwein, who's the Director of Retail Analytics at Intel. Like I said, it was a great panel discussion, and I think we're going to highlight some of the topics that we talked about today. We're going to give you a chance to hear from the expert panels on the Real-Time Business and Internet of Things live stream. So here it goes.
Welcome to Insight's Intelligent Technology Forum. Today, we are going to be talking about real-time business and IoT. And I will be your moderator for today's discussion. My name's Robin Ituli. So today we are talking about the Internet of Things and real-time business. IHS, which is an analyst firm, is projecting that the IoT market is going to reach over 30 billion connected devices by the year 2020, which just 3 years out, and over 70 billion in another 5 years. So that more than doubles. Market leaders are arguing that the Internet of Things has been around for decades, but it's really coming into maybe what Kevin Kelly calls, reference to Curt and some of our similar reading here, cognifying a number of things, and that's going to be a driving factor in the conversation today. Using those data and analytics to help make business decisions, drive innovation, and meet consumer needs is creating more competition than ever. In fact, McKinsey Institute estimates that the total IoT market size is going to reach 3.7 trillion by the year 2020 as well. So there are big numbers attached to this, not only in terms of devices, but also in terms of market opportunity. So today, to help us have this discussion and discuss what the real opportunity is and how to get there, three of our distinguished guests. We have on the end over here, Mr. Bob Familiar. Bob brings more than 30 years of industry experience with marked expertise in IoT, cloud, DevOps consulting, and software, and he is the Director of National Practice at Blue Metal. Bob is also a published author of microservices, IoT, and Azure, and he also holds a patent in object relational database design. It's an extremely sophisticated introduction. Welcome. We are so grateful to have you and your expertise this morning.
Great to be here.
Next to Bob, we have Dan Gutwein. I didn't ask you that before the live stream. This is the beauty of live TV.
Everything works, but Gutwein is how it's pronounced. So, but it's up to you.
There you have it. Now we have the correct pronunciation. And Dan is the Director of Retail Analytics in the Retail Solutions Division at Intel, and part of the Internet of Things group. And he has more than 25 years experience in helping customers solve business problems with technology solutions from startups to large corporations. Welcome.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
to be here. Thank you.
Apologies for butchering your name.
No problem at all.
And of course, we have Curt Cornum, who is our Chief Solution Architect and a Vice President of Services with Insight. Curt helps our clients navigate the changing technology landscape and helps businesses and IT leaders develop solutions and frameworks and references that put technology to work to deliver meaningful solutions.
Morning, Robin.
Good to have you guys. All right, so let's dive right in. There's some really, really interesting conversations happening around real-time business and Internet of Things. In fact, you could almost argue that there's a bit of marketplace saturation in terms of the conversation, which really gives us an imperative to need to bring some actual clarity to it. It's not just buzzwords, there's real meaning behind this. So why are businesses striving to get real-time data from products, environments, consumers, employees, and partners as well? I'll send that one to you, Dan.
Well, great question, by the way, and I think I would rephrase it a little bit. And it's not just about just having the real-time data, but being able to take real-time actions with the data that you receive. I mean, I work almost exclusively in retail. Our products and solutions obviously go through all kinds of different industries and verticals and Internet of Things group. But I mean, retailers aren't short of data, right? They've got plenty of data. They're short on, I think, being able to take actions in that data in, a timely fashion. And I think gone are the days when, we're looking backwards and trying to figure out, what happened over the last, 13 weeks and trying to figure out how to actually, take that in today's environment, or, what happened last Mother's Day is going to happen this Mother's Day, because things change. I mean, they're dynamic and they're fluid at all times. And the Internet of Things is, helping, make those decisions, in near real time. I mean, real time is a relative term, I think, but certainly in near real time.
Yeah, just add a bit, because you mentioned that some of this is not new, right? That we talked to folks and they're going, hey, we've been doing Internet of Things for some time, and that's true a lot, especially in the machine-to-machine side and what they kind of call the uncarpeted areas. But two areas that there's a lot of investment in right now. One is around the changing customer expectations, right? And we're all consumers at one point or another in our lives, and we're hyper-connected, and that's creating some interesting behaviors, right? We're more informed than we've ever been, and we're probably more skeptical than we've ever been, and we're more socially aware and socially connected, and I just think that drives a lot of different behaviors and the way that folks are going to interact with their customers today. So that's kind of one aspect of it, and then when you flip that and you look at the workforce that we have today, the workforce is really changing. We were talking earlier, if you look at Insight, we've got an age range from 18 to 75 that work at Insight. So we have 5 generations that are working for Insight right now. We got people so old they don't know how to do email, and we got people so young they don't know how to do email, or they refuse to do emails, maybe more appropriate. And somewhere in there, when you look at the young side, right, the post-millennials, they're really the true digital natives, right? They don't really remember life before an iPhone, right? They're like 9 or 10 years old, the oldest ones when the iPhone came out. So if you look at the workforce, where it's going to be in 3 years, it'll be over 50% millennials and 10% post-millennials. So you have the 60% of the workforce in 2 or 3 years that are just going to demand data more real time, right? That's just the direction that they're going. Like you're saying, the mirror view just doesn't really appeal to that crowd, right? There's just been an expectation that's been set. So kind of those two things, and then this whole subscription economy that we may talk about later around how it's enabling things. It's more of an enabler that creates this on-demand, what I call this on-demand world that we live in today. And that on-demand world requires people to figure out real-time business solutions. So to me, that's kind of the crux of what we're seeing and what's different than what we may have seen before, where it was infrastructure optimization and trying to get efficiencies out of equipment and things like that. So it's an interesting time.
What I think is also interesting is every business, regardless of what vertical they're in, is dealing with this same problem. And so over the last several years, everyone's been talking about IoT, and there's been a lot of advancements in sensors and single board computers. They're all looking to figure out how to leverage this access to data in their business. And a lot of companies have been experimenting, but it's interesting to see now the shift to where these solutions they're being rolled out, they're being operationalized, and through the work that we've done at Blue Metal, we're seeing this maturity in this space where businesses are now seeing the value of getting access to real-time data.
So I think the real short answer, it's about there's increased competition, right? So whether you're competing for in the marketplace or whether you're competing to, hire and retain top talent within your organization, you need to be focused on these types of technologies and how you can use them to attract both those.
I'm just so amazed that Insight thinks you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
I don't understand this.
So when I put my marketing
hair.
hat on, I get a lot of support on that.
So with the increased competition, organizations naturally have to look towards developing more efficiencies and finding new revenue streams. How do real-time data and IoT support those initiatives?
Yeah, I know you guys have some great use cases, so I'll probably defer to Bob.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is when companies get into this space, clearly there's a technology component to it. So they have to figure out, if they manufacture a product, how are we going to sensor enable this product? How are we going to ingest that information into typically a cloud platform, do some advanced analytics on that, and then build some applications on top of that to be able to take action, as Dan was saying. To get the other side of it though is they have to think about their business model, right? So what's going to change about our business as a result? It's interesting to see manufacturing companies that are oriented around, let's say, a hardware product. They're going to go to bed as a hardware product and wake up as a software company as the result of this. And that's almost a direct quote from the CEO of GE, so I want to give him credit for that. But the point is these companies are going through this transformation, so they're going to change, and that can be very challenging culturally. So it's interesting to see the impact of this on the cultures of companies, on the skill sets that they need to have, they have to hire for or retrain for as they evolve from being, as I said, being oriented around a product to now offering software as a service. And those software applications providing access to this data through rich visualizations and alerts and notifications and things of that sort.
Dan, you indicated responsiveness as being really a business imperative that real-time data and IoT are starting to enable. It's becoming part of, dare I say it, table stakes for the way that really innovative companies or companies facing a lot of competition are moving. Do you have some examples of ways that organizations have leveraged their real-time data to become responsive?
Yeah, I've got several examples. Where to start? One of the case studies that we've gone public with is with Levi Strauss & Company. I think everyone's familiar with them, an iconic brand, wonderful company. Several stores around the world, so global distribution, global manufacturing. And we did some studies early on with a couple of research firms, and we found out that this inventory kind of issue in the store, like understanding where your inventory is, having the right stock in the right place at the right time, equates to, in the retail industry, greater than a $1 trillion problem, right? So we're not talking about small numbers. We're talking about massive impact in the industry, just having overstocks and out of stocks. And so everyone listening has gone into some retail store at some particular time and said, hey, I'm looking for this particular item. And the associate says, well, let me try to find it. It says I have one here. I can't locate it. That happens all the time. As a matter of fact, independent Intel Labs did a study that said the on-shelf availability of items in retail is around 60 to 65% in an average retailer. So we worked with Levi Strauss & Company and came out with the retail sensor platform to help their store respond real time. And it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the consumer, right? Taking care of the customer when they walk in the door and having the right products in the right place at the right time, making sure that you have all the right sizes out at the right place, making sure that, if you're shopping for a pair of 501s, you're normally not hunting like a 514 section, right? You're looking at the 501 section, so making sure things are there. And we're working with Levi Strauss & Company and the retail sensor platform that Intel developed. We're tracking items, every single item in every single store within seconds. And we can tell if you take a pair of 501s, you throw it in the 514 section, in the stores where we've enabled it, it will alert the associate to go put that back. And so gone are the days where you're kind of like, let's go try and kind of get our store organized at the end of the day or at the end of the shift. It's organized now, right now at the individual given time. And so, I mean, the insights in that, as you can imagine, are incredible. And in retail, there's an onslaught of just the pure .com plays, right? Because they have that data. They know where the data is in their warehouse. They know when it's going to arrive at your house before you ever pay, click pay. And so, it's not so much about, are we competing with them, but it's about when a consumer walks in your store, converting them to a sale. If you don't have what they want or you can't find it, you're not converting it to a sale. So it's about satisfying that customer and making sure things are in the right place at the right time. I can give you another quick example that's interesting too.
We'd love to hear it.
I'm sure you would. So I hope you do anyway, maybe not.
Keep going.
But this is probably near and dear to a lot of folks that are actually listening as well. As a couple years ago, we actually started tagging beer kegs, right? And so if you look at the amount of like waste and like draft beer, it's in the billions. There's a couple 100 million beer kegs at any given time floating around the U.S. alone, and no one knows really where they are. They're probably on a lot of college campuses or floating in rivers or end tables in people's houses. But the real challenge was at the bar. If anyone's ever worked in the like food and beverage industry, the way to actually tell if there's enough beer in there is to shake it or kick it. Mm-hmm. And so we actually have sensors on them now, working with a small company up in Indiana called SteadyServe. And we're able to actually tell that bar owner down to the pint how many pints are left in that keg, so you know when to change it, so you know if you have enough when your busy shift is coming. And that's interesting, and it provides amazing value to those individual bars by just connecting beer kegs. But what's really interesting is the data that you get back up through the supply chain. And so as you can start looking at consumption levels and pairings and what they do, the end objective is to someday do some prescriptive and predictive analytics that allow us to actually go out and figure out maybe what kind of hops you need to actually plant, that you can actually harvest in a couple of years because you understand that demand, and you're not kind of left out in the cold, looking at where the consumer demand is going. And again, going back to the same thing, you're fulfilling that consumer demand and satisfying the customer. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, based on these two examples with jeans and fashion and also beer, that this is probably going to be among our highest rated live streams. So thank you.
Well,
thank you for that content contribution.
Can I just, let me tell you a quick story, because Dan, I was out at Intel's developer forum a few months ago, and Dan was nice enough actually to invite me to go tour the Levi's store. So it's their flagship store in the Embarcadero. And I'm waiting there, and Dan shows up and he goes, "Curt, I sure hope those are Levi's jeans you're wearing." As it turned out, they were my favorite Wrangler jeans. So it's kind of started the tour off on a bad note. I'm wearing Wrangler jeans. I know. So I walk in.
You would think we're going to Levi's, you'd wear Levi's.
You would think that.
I
just wasn't thinking. So I'm wearing my Wrangler jeans in. We start the demo. They're showing us Intel's retail sensor platform. And the stylist, she didn't call me out like Dan did on the jeans. So she's got the app there. She's demoing it. So I'm trying to save face, and I'm like, "Hey, do you have a pair of dark blue non-skinny bootcut jeans in 34, 32? And she goes, "Well, let me check." And she has the app right there, and she goes, "We don't have it here in the store, but it shows we have a pair in the store, back in the storeroom, and that's the next stop on the tour." And I'm going, "Great." So a few minutes later, we go back into the stock room, and we kind of funnel in there, and it looked like the warehouse scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, if anybody remembers that scene. It was just like, this cavernous thing with jeans up to the rafters. And I'm like, there's no way in heck she's going to find these jeans. It's just not going to happen. And she disappears. She goes, "Let me go get your jeans." She disappears around the corner, comes back like 10 seconds later, and she goes, "Got them." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And so, a few minutes and $85 later, I now have my new favorite pair of Levi's jeans. And I got to tell the story about that and see the retail sensor platform in action, which was pretty cool.
Your contribution to resolving that multi-trillion-dollar problem.
Exactly, I'm doing my part to do that. So, but it was interesting to see that app live, and so I appreciate the invite to go see that. Because it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing when you actually experience that, and that's that whole expectations. Once she said she had them, now I didn't want to leave without them. At that point.
Your experience and the platforms and technologies of the new IT that are driving this are two pretty separate things. The ideal being that you really don't have to experience any of that background searching, location, warehousing, all of that. But there's a number of technologies that have to be implemented to make that happen. So can we talk about some of the base layers of this that are required to successfully implement?
So this is where the conversation starts to get a little technical, but it's pretty fascinating. We've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, you'll hear Bob Familiar explain the base layers, or what I call the IoT stack, that's needed to build a successful IoT solution.
Subscribe to Insight's digital magazine, The Script Quarterly, and receive in-depth feature articles decoding today's IT trends. Each issue showcases original content with answers to your technology questions and an in-depth exploration of business technology headlines. Visit insight.com/quarterly to subscribe today.
So thanks for staying with us. Just a moment ago, you heard Robin, our moderator of the live stream, ask our panelists to discuss the layers of technology, or what I referred to as the IoT stack, that must be implemented to make some of these real-time business initiatives happen. Let's take you right back to our conversation. Here's Bob Familiar.
I think what's great about those examples, there's some very consistent patterns that you see there. The ability to first remote monitor, from that being able to build up a real-time inventory. If you combine that, for example, we did a similar thing with an IoT-enabled vaccine dispensing refrigerator. So we could track not only the mechanical information about the refrigerator and do what's called predictive maintenance for that, to figure out when it would need maintenance, and be able to roll a technician and have that operational efficiency as a result. We could also track all the inventory information, which now allowed that business to proactively provide a service for replenishment of those vaccines, which can be very expensive. So we want to make sure you never run out of the malaria vaccine, right? Because if you did, now you've got a problem in a developing country, as an example. So in order to create a solution like that, first it's the act of adding these low-cost sensors and these single-board computers, possibly cellular capability for areas where maybe they don't have rich networking capability. The ability to get these sensors in there, collect the right information, connect it to the cloud, securely go from the device to the cloud, and these cloud platforms are providing some very rich finished services for doing that. So some kind of a cloud gateway where devices can connect securely, they can send the telemetry, but you can also send commands down to the device as well for doing things like firmware upgrades. Being able to then bring that information in and in real time do some analytics, do what's called stream processing. Analyze each of the messages and say, if this is just standard telemetry, we're going to route it over here to the telemetry store so that we can make sure that shows up on a dashboard, but be able to in real time identify alert or alarm conditions, and then route that properly to a service which can do a real time notification, either an email or a text message or different ways that you could inform people in real time. So you need that capability. Lots of different storage capability in the cloud you want to take advantage of. There could be some low-cost blob storage for archive. It could be a data lake for doing advanced analytics, your Hadoop-based distributed queries, or a predictive analytics engine sitting on top of that data store. Certainly relational database, NoSQL database. You need all those different types of storage capabilities. You're likely going to build out a set of APIs so that you have a consistent way for applications to access your IoT services and your analytics services. So you have these managed APIs, and then you have all the different types of ways you can build an application today, which could be a mobile application, a web-based application. And interestingly enough, where an area that folks maybe don't try to focus on all that much in the initial implementation of these IoT solutions, is integration to their existing environment. So being able to do, let's say, store and forward messaging, or a batch-based file movement of this information to an on-premise environment for integration with ERP systems and other back-end stores. So lots of different moving parts. And in order to support all of that, as an organization, you need to develop what I would just call your DevOps chops, right? You need to be able to have an organization that can do this continuous delivery, a type of software development lifecycle, to be able to roll out constant changes to the cloud, to be able to manage the health of that cloud environment, and automate your software development lifecycle end to end. But that then also brings up the fact that now you have all those devices out there, and this is a whole new world of, hey, I have to manage tens of thousands, millions of devices. So one of the applications you typically build is this operational NOC. It's this ability to get visibility into all your connected devices, know what their health status is, be able to select subsets and perform firmware upgrades, be able to do what's called command and control down to those devices, and of course receive all the telemetry for all the rich data visualization. So again, it's a, when you get into this, there's lots of different types of technologies you have to deal with. You have to handle the security across all of that. And you have to have the ability to manage those applications using automation, which in the industry today we call that DevOps.
Yep.
So it's an enormous undertaking that also sounds like it really requires some thinking around your business model.
Sure.
So what kind of things are businesses considering as they're making that move to real-time and IoT?
Dan, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm also going to comment a little bit on what you said as well. You said there's a lot of just moving parts and items. There are. And we talked a little bit about the Levi's stuff and the beer kegs. And there's so many more examples I could go into. And I think one important note to make is that we've built a really incredible platform, but I mean this stuff isn't like super easy yet. I'm being honest, right? And that's why you've got to work with someone that can install it, service it, manage it, write the application code on it as well. Because as much as we want to just plug these things in, they just start doing things. It's not that easy. There's a lot of challenges, but as I keep reminding people, these aren't problems that we just uncovered, right? We've had these problems since the beginning of time. But anyway, just a caveat on that, you asked about the business process and business changes. One of the biggest issues with IoT, you think about, even like apparel, they're now projecting by 2020 tagging like 25 billion items. How do you do that? Where do you do that? If there's error when you actually program the item, there's going to be error in your results, right? And so, we have a lot of folks that want to try to do it on their own, for some cost issues, whatever the case is. There are challenges, and it will be, we think we're pretty close to getting all those challenges ironed out. Mm-hmm. But there's not one company that I know of that's just bringing the entire end-to-end solution. You've got to have folks that know what they're doing in individual things. And I'll give you a prime example, right? We're working with a large hospital chain about how do you take the data from sensing, patients going in, not the individual, but this patient's going through this process, and help them get through the process faster. And so your wristband can be sensed. And if there's no logic, though, if you have to go into X-ray and you have to do, you have to go and get your blood work done, if X-ray is busy, there's no logic to say today, go reroute them here and then come back there. So you just kind of sit in the queue, which everyone enjoys and loves, right? No. But when we started sensing them, all of a sudden we realized that when a patient was laying flat, we couldn't read the data because the water in your body canceled out the signal, right? It's like, something we didn't know. There are interferences with the signals, and I get in a lot of detail that will bore people. But again, a little bit of patience too from I think all the verticals in the industry. We're solving problems that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's really exciting, but it's also challenging.
Yeah, just a couple of points on the technology, because Bob, I think you did a great job of what we kind of affectionately call the IoT stack, which is everything from the things all the way up through the analytics, and eventually some kind of endpoints that you're using to do some kind of visualization, or actually getting the data and trying to get some insight out of that. So that's a big part of it. And there's a couple enablers there. We mentioned the sensors, the storage. All of those things have come down in price, so they've made them much more available. So we're seeing people create, make things smart that we would probably all argue shouldn't be smart, quite honestly. And just having them connected doesn't make them smart is another piece of it. And I think one of the other enablers besides that, the cost piece that's come down on those components, is their standards bodies and standards that are out there today that are doing a lot to promote the industry. And so when you look at things like Bluetooth Low Energy and Wi-Fi and Zigbee and some others from a connectivity standpoint, kind of the assumption that that connectivity is available makes it much easier for somebody to develop a product today because there's an assumption that that's available. Still not easy, right? And then I mentioned a bit about the subscription economy. So when you look at these IoT platforms that are really starting to mature and create, they're really taking on much more of that IoT stack today. Everything from device command and control to some of the streaming analytics to all the APIs to tie all this together. They're getting so much more powerful that it's really making it easier to develop and kind of what they say, wire these solutions together than it used to be. But at the same time, you talked about business models changing, right? People have this expectation, I believe, in this on-demand world that we live in today, where it's not so much, I want to buy your product, it's, I want to pay you for the value I get from your product. So when you start delivering these products out to the marketplace, the expectations are changing around. I don't really want the product, I just want to pay for the value of that product. And if you're a product manufacturer, which we've seen is, now that you provide a product that can be connected, there's an expectation that you can provide some kind of insight that you can actually see that product where you never had to have that, you never had that expectation on you as a manufacturer before. So it's changing those business models, and there is some disruption around what do we have to have people trained to do within our own organization. And we're seeing it with end users. I know Bob and I talked to a client that's in property management, and they're looking at doing smart locks and smart thermostats and smart lighting. So they've never done that. As an IT staff, they've never dealt with the things before. They've dealt with desktops and laptops and printers and those types of things. So now they have to deal with the scaling of these thousands of devices. So there's a scaling issue, there's a diversity issue of those devices, and how do they integrate that into their IT functions? So it's really disrupting the business models there, and they need to retool their labor force to be able to take advantage of that.
Conversely speaking, it's no longer about the things, it is about the experience, and that's what's forcing the transition in the business model. So Levi's is a great example, a well-recognized quality product. Now they're moving towards a more experiential approach to their product.
Yeah, it's really never, well, I shouldn't say it's never been about the thing. The real start of the show is the data, right? It's the insight that you get from any of these things that you're connecting. So just connecting them isn't enough. We were talking offline, the CES was last week, and there was just a ton of quote unquote smart products that were being demoed there, from walking sticks to shoes to a monitor so it would tell you when your shower temp was just right. I've always done a pretty good job just reaching in and feeling the water. I don't think I need a solution for that one. And then another one was a hairbrush. And so it's a quote unquote smart hairbrush that has a sensor in it. There's no LEDs on the brush, but you brush your hair and it tries to sense, are you brushing enough times? But also, what's the quality of your hair, right? So it's trying to sense things about your hair, and then they've partnered with some hair care products, and then you have a mobile app and it makes you gives you recommendations on, you need a shampoo and conditioner that's is going to strengthen your hair, or it's dry, or it's damaged or whatever. And
it's
so
called IoT gone bad.
Yeah, well, and I won't go too deep. I did write an article on LinkedIn when it's called IoT when smart things get creepy. And because I go kind of deep around that subject, but it's real.
The hairbrush
right?
is a little creepy.
The hairbrush might be a little creepy. Yeah, I was talking about my bathroom scale in the article, which I won't bore you guys with the details. But I won't even say it was borderline creepy, but you can go read it if you find it out there. But I think all of those things are changing business models, and they're changing the way that we all try to experience things today.
You're spot on. It's about the experience, and I haven't met anyone yet that dislikes the frictionless Uber experience when you leave the car, right? You just kind of walk away. I haven't met anyone yet that says, man, I really want to give this guy my credit card and let him, remember the old days, ching, right? And so it is about the experience. And I think, when whether you're heading into a store and you're looking for a certain product, to actually have it, right? Not have someone go hunting for it forever, have it where it is, that you can, touch and feel is a great experience. If you're going into a hospital, actually having you move through that hospital, not sitting around forever, wasting time, is a good experience. We're tracking thousands of pigs, of swine in North Carolina right now in a pilot project, because we know that we're actually tracking the feeding trial, right? And I think not having swine flu is a good experience, right? And so we know that if they don't eat at certain times, right, that they're sick. And I think those are good experiences, and those aren't creepy experiences. They're enhancing the way that it is. And I'll tell one CES story, and then I'll be done. But I was at CES this year as well, and there was a sign there in one of the booths, and I will go nameless, and it said, "Talk to your refrigerator." And I asked the guy standing there, I said, "Well, what do I want to say to my refrigerator?" And he said, "Oh, watch this." He said, "Refrigerator, what's the temperature in Minneapolis?" And the refrigerator came back and told the temperature in Minneapolis. I'm like, dude, if I ever get to a point where I'm having a conversation with my refrigerator, like I have other issues. But again, I mean, somebody might like that. I'm just probably not their target audience. I would love it if my refrigerator, were to send me a note to say, "Hey, man, you're out of milk," or actually send that order off to, whatever online grocer, just have it done. But so there are some, IoT gone bad things or just some weird things. Yeah. But again, I mean, you're looking at a sample of 3, not the entire, consumer world. And I think that it's, some people might love having a conversation with the refrigerator. I don't want to, I guess, but.
Given the conversations that happen in my kitchen with 2 preschooler, toddler, that refrigerator is going to be responding to some very strange requests. Exactly. Which is very interesting data and might have some predictive analytics for their choices when they're older. I don't know, but these are the realities we are facing in a real-time and internet and /smart things environment. But underlying all of that, right, the experience sits on a number of platforms, and a certain amount of expertise has to be applied there, right? We've talked about how complicated it is. It is not necessarily that you just make something smart. In fact, we argue some things really maybe shouldn't be. Perhaps a refrigerator. Maybe we'll be proved wrong. History will have to bear that out. But what capabilities does an organization need to build up if this is a really strategic objective for them to deploy?
Well, just starting on the technology side, certainly this area of DevOps, right? So you have to know how to automate your entire software development lifecycle, because you are now in the software business, all right? So you're going to have a connected product. It now becomes all about the data. All right, so data, you're going to involve data stores, it's going to involve analytics, it's going to involve various services and applications. You have to know how to manage that in a cloud environment and do it for leveraging what's called multi-tenancy, which means you're building software applications that both your employees as well as your partners and your customers are all authenticating into the same cloud-hosted software. So you have to know how to manage these multi-tenant identity environments. On the other side, it's impacting your business model. So you're not necessarily now selling this product, you're selling an experience. I mean, that in and of itself should sort of imagine that rippling through your organization, that now you sell an experience, and what impact that has on your public-facing website, so your entire digital experience through your mobile applications, your sales force, the marketing team, of course, and as I spoke about earlier, IT. So it has these profound impacts on the culture of your organization, and that's why when we engage our clients around here, we like to say, well, let's start with a minimal viable product. Let's create something that we can operationalize quickly. And through that process, your IT folks, your developers, your operations teams will learn about how to do DevOps and how to build these applications. We'll work, obviously, through that in engaging early your customers so that they're now providing you feedback on the experience, and then your sales teams, your marketing teams can all learn from that, right? So the whole point is, don't try to boil the ocean, that you use what we like to call a lean engineering approach and bring these minimal viable products to market quickly at velocity, and through that process learn internally and have your customers then provide direct feedback so that you can then iterate on the next version of that and always stay on target with what you're bringing to market.
And I think you're spot on right. I'll take a little different kind of direction on it. I think maybe, businesses, organizations probably need to relook at how they're spending, what kind of budget they're allocating towards connecting things as well. I had a conversation a couple days ago with one of our field salespersons, and they want to know, how much does it cost? I'm like, well, going out to your customer and saying you need a check for $250 million is probably not the right way to start, right? Because it's going to freak everybody out. Although this particular company has spent well over that, doing kind of cloud applications and the like. But I think, maybe even as an industry, as a technology provider industry, we might need to relook at how we're, going to market with some of this as well, because the world has changed. And to go out and, suck CapEx budgets dry, right, when maybe it should be more into an OpEx piece, more the services model is something that, I know at least in our group at Intel, we're considering very heavily, right? You've got to make this to where, it's even difficult to get large companies, even if there's a guarantee increased ramp in sales, to come up with the CapEx maybe early up front. So the business process, not only on the company side, but I think on the technology provider side, has to change a little bit too. And I think all of us can, share in the benefits of, satisfying consumers, right? But probably a little different business model, I think, internally as well in the tech community. So,
Curt, you spend a lot of time with our clients and in philosophical conversations, but also very practical ones about how to get started.
Right.
Where does that conversation typically begin for you?
Well, it's interesting. We talked to a client, and they kind of understand now that they need to go a direction that they haven't before. And sometimes we can learn from the past. If we look probably around 16, 17 years ago, the things that a lot of folks call operational technology, like the voice systems, were one of those, right? They were very much siloed, very much a OT type of thing. And then as voice started getting IP enabled, it eventually became an IP function, and you had IT folks that were like, we don't know these voice systems, and you had the voice people going, this is my domain, don't mess with it, right? And we're seeing that a lot these days. And so I think it's a transition. I think we've learned in the past that these things are going to happen, as they become more digitized, that it's an opportunity and a challenge for folks in IT to embrace this. And I would say, we hear a lot, and I've done a lot of infrastructure over the last 20, 30 years. We hear a lot about software's eating the world, because I think, like I might have mentioned, the star of the show really is the software and the analytics and all the power that we're able to draw insight from now, but there's still an underlying infrastructure there. And so I brought you something for a little show and tell. This is my Raspberry Pi. And I don't know if your kids have one of those yet, but you're never
in on this bad boy.
You're never too young or too old to learn how to code. And Raspberry Pi is actually foundation, and that little thing, the base price on it is $35, right? It's packed with, and that one I souped it up a little bit. But it's packed with sensors, and it has a real-time operating system and all those kind of things, full-blown OS, and it just shows you how to get. I actually had it talking to Watson last night, which was way overkill for what I'm doing for the thing, but I'm trying to get back to my roots and learn some code, because a lot of what we're talking about here is driven by things like Python. We hear about Python and JavaScript and those other things, and it's pretty intimidating for a lot of folks. But when you look at some of the way these platforms are designed today, they really do kind of guide you through this process and make that IoT stack more digestible for a lot of folks. So I think it's one of those things, you need to understand that stack and, like you said, do a minimal viable product, start small, maybe keep it in a silo, and then look at the integration after you do a proof of value and those types of things to get them into your environment. But I think it is kind of a crawl, walk, run type of thing for IoT. We'll be back with more of our Internet of Things live stream in just a minute. Stay with us.
For IT professionals, it's nearly impossible to find and explore all the important business technology headlines, but it's critical to stay informed of the latest IT trends. Get IT news worth sharing and subscribe to Insight's newsletter, The Script. You'll receive weekly industry articles curated from great sources from across the web and stories on intelligent technology to keep you up to date. Visit insight.com/subscribe to sign up today.
So as we wrap this part of our conversation, we've done a lot of reflection on what has come to pass. There is actually a pretty lengthy history around IoT. Mm-hmm. Things have been cognified for a while now. But where do you each see real-time business going? And I'll give you a really short, tweetable amount of time to answer that question for our listeners.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I love what I'm seeing today is this combination of, because the IoT approach, the platform approach, and the applications we build for data visualization and remote monitoring and all that, that's becoming fairly mature, but now it's the integration of artificial intelligence. It's bringing in these very intelligent chatbot applications to be integrated with the real-time data, creating, again, these really cool, immersive, intelligent experiences for the end user.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just simply say environments that are created to respond to you, to the consumer. And, that's not far out in the future either. I mean, it's, when I walk in the store, why can't that store respond to me as I want them to respond to? If I want to walk into a store and I'm a VIP loyal customer and I want to grab my jeans and walk out, why shouldn't I be able to do that? And having what I want where I want it it's, by the way, if you think we're asking for that, wait till your kids become massive consumers, because I think you've got a lot of research on the next generation, and that's exactly where they're headed. They're in a very connected world, and I think that is going to continue that. So probably not tweetable, but fire away.
I'll make up for them, I think. I mentioned it before, it's that integration of the digital world with the physical world and making that much more seamless. So as I go places and try to make decisions about things, I can leverage what I know from the digital world and apply it to the physical world, which is still where we all exist today.
Still, it feels like you're leaving some question.
Well, I just got done binge watching Westworld on HBO On Demand, so I'm starting to question some of the, what's real and what isn't real these days.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me as your new guest host, and thanks for trying something different with us on Technomics today. Like I said at the start of the show, we have many more Technomics coming up in the next couple of months, and we expect to hear more great episodes like this one. And hopefully you enjoyed having me. I definitely had a great time today. So thanks again for listening to Technomics, and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks for listening to Technomics. If you want to find more episodes, you can download the podcast from iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast provider. And for more stories on intelligent technology, visit insight.com.